Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for joining our diagnostic training session today. Now, if you have any questions throughout the session, if you're joining us on Zoom, just look at the top of the bottom of your screen. Wherever your Zoom controls are, you should see a little button that says Q&A. Click on that, type in your question, and I'll get to those at the end. If you're joining us on YouTube, just feel free to leave a comment in the live chat wherever it happens to be on the screen. If you're watching after the live event, then just leave a comment under the video. And if you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe. Always good. So my name is Jason Gabrinas. I'm one of Snap-on's national diagnostic technical trainers. Been in the training department 10 years or so now, traveling around North America, helping techs and shop owners get the most out of their diagnostic equipment. For that, I did a couple years as a diagnostic sales rep at Snap-on. So I had about 30 different franchisees I worked with, as well as the shops that they serviced in order to help everyone get the most out of their diagnostic. Before that, it was 8 years at Subaru. So worked in a dealership, and I guess over time just became the default diag guy in the shop. Always ended up with the drivability problems, the intermittent problems, the weird wiring problems that would show up on the car. And that's really where I cut my diagnostic teeth, was trying to figure out all those weird head scratcher problems that would come into my mind. Then before that, a bunch of other miscellaneous wrenching jobs. Been a little over 25 years underhood experience for me. So our topic today is the power of OBD-II information, and this will be part 2 of our 2-part series. We started last week with part 1, so if you haven't seen that one, I encourage you to go check that out. Otherwise, we're going to talk about part 2. So the beginning, the early episode, just to catch you up here, we talked about readiness monitors. We talked about the troubleshooter that's inside on the Snap-on scan tools. We talked about mode 1, which is displaying data. So if I wanted to see the current PID data, emissions related data off the vehicle, I can do it there. Freeze frame data, which is going to be a snapshot whenever a code is set. And then, of course, display trouble codes and clear all the emissions related data. So we talked all about that, talked a little bit about the history of OBD-II as well. So with this one, like I said, we're going to pick up on mode 5. So we did the first 4 modes, and then we'll do 5 through 10 on this. So we got mode 5. Now, as I also have said previously, some cars may have this, some cars may not see this. I think it just kind of depends on the age of the vehicle as to whether or not it shows up on the vehicle. So the mode 5, you may see or you may not see, because some of that got rolled into mode 6, I think. And then mode 9, you may see additional mode 9s over and above what we see here on the screen. And you may or may not see that mode 10 down at the end, depending on what the car has for capability. So first one's mode 5. And what that is it displays oxygen sensor test results. So it can be used as a report on the condition of single or multiple sensors. So you can actually go through, run the test, see what the results of the test are. You could print it out as well if you wanted to do that. But see, we got oxygen sensor monitoring right there, mode 5, and then it would go in and do that. Now, I don't have a vehicle that actually has that. So we would just see some test results similar to what we're going to see on this next couple of slides. Mode 6, pretty popular with a lot of diagnosticians trying to diagnose drivability problems. They'll go in and they'll use that data in combination with other things in order to see what's going on with the vehicle. So it can be used to find problems in non-continuous monitored systems. So things that are not continually monitored, maybe it runs a test, once a drive cycle or something. Gives you a pass-fail for each system or component. And let's see, can also be used to gauge which monitors have failed, and can also be used to validate repairs after the fact. So you can go through and see, okay, what failed and what the history is. Now, every manufacturer is going to be a little bit different how they put it in there. There could be some manufacturer-specific tests that go on in there over and above what's mandated by OBD-II. But let's just look at some examples. So in this example, we're looking at my car. Notice how there is no mode 5 there. So I think it's on pretty much newer cars. You're not going to see that mode 5. But we do have a mode 6. So onboard monitored systems there. And then once I entered mode 6, you can see all the different tests that are available. So you have oxygen sensors. So like I said, the oxygen sensors kind of rolled into this one. So instead of having the separate mode 5, we have these different monitors here. So you got oxygen sensor bank 1 and bank 2, or bank 1, sensor 1 and sensor 2. Catalyst monitor, EGR monitor, VVTs, evap monitor to 20 seconds, 20 thousandths, sorry. Purge flow monitor, oxygen sensor heaters, and then misfires, right? So we can go into the oxygen sensor test. And this is what you would see like in that mode 5 too. So is the oxygen sensor monitor ready? Is the cycle enabled, and is the cycle completed? And then we have a couple different tests here. So there's this one that's set as 84 lambda value. And then this one's set as 85 lambda value. And then this one is 86 values 0.07. So as long as it's between the min and max and it doesn't go over the max, then you'll know that it passed. And I guess it doesn't go below the minimum either. So that's just seeing these lambda tests are just seeing how close it strayed outside of 1, which would be perfect lambda, which would be perfect 14.701 ratio. So that's just one example. Another one that a lot of folks use is going to be the misfire monitors too. So wherever they happen to be on the particular vehicle. But in this case, we see misfire monitor ready, enabled, and completed. And then we see the next section. It says average misfires in the last 10 drive cycles. There's actually 1. So a minimum of 0 and maximum of 6,000 or 65,000, but it has passed. But it does show that it detected a misfire. And actually on the current drive cycle, it had detected a misfire in this case. It was only 1, but it had detected a misfire. So let's see if we can figure out just on this, just using the OBD-II data, where that misfire may be. Because if you notice, there are individual cylinder data as well. So let's look at cylinder 1. Cylinder 1, let's see, value is 0, value is 0. Okay, it's not there. How about cylinder 2? Cylinder 2, not there either. Cylinder 3, there it is right there. So misfires in the current drive cycle, we have 1 on cylinder 3. So knowing that I'm in cylinder 3, then I could go investigate it. If for some reason I had no other way to go, couldn't go to the manufacturer's side, couldn't go and test other things and had no engine light or anything like that to indicate that it was cylinder 3. Maybe it's like a random misfire, or just the customer feels the misfire when it's driving, but it's not enough to set the light type of thing. So we can see that, individual cylinders. Cylinder 3 has it. And then if we pop into cylinder 4, of course, we would now know at that point we don't have anything there. So it can be useful for trying to find these different things, especially in like those tests, like the misfire test or oxygen sensor tests. It's not going to be a ton of tests in there. It's just going to be whatever is kind of mandated by the OBD. Mode 7 is going to be related. It displays test results for components that are monitored in one trip, and it's going to be show you DTCs. So that's going to be in mode 7. Those would be considered pending DTCs in mode 7. So it's going to be, it happened once, but it didn't happen enough. So if the pending code does not return, it clears out itself out in 40 drive cycles. Otherwise, if that pending code returns on the next cycle, it'll move to mode 3 after 3 times where it shows up. So if we get to the point where it sets a code on a one-trip monitor 3 times, then it will go to mode 3. And in that case, it turns on the check engine. So we can go in here. In this case, during the last drive cycle, we did have 1 misfire, but that wasn't enough to set a code. So we can just see no codes present there. But that's where you would find any of those pending codes in the vehicle as well. And we have mode 8. It's going to allow the scan tool to perform some onboard system activation tests. Controls the ECM to test the components. So it's a bidirectional control, but it's going to be very limited in what it can do. Only the supported tests will be displayed, and these are commonly referred to as bidirectional controls, like I just said. So right here, mode 8, request control of the onboard system. And then we see we have an evap test and then a DPF regen, which would be available if it was a diesel. But evap test, and then actually on my vehicle, you can't force the evap test with OBD-II anyways, so it would just say it's not available. If the vehicle doesn't support it, the tool will tell you if the vehicle doesn't support it. Mode 9, vehicle information. So that's going to display the following ECU information if it's supported. Once again, the manufacturer may just say, well, we don't need to put that in there. But we got VIN, so the vehicle identification number, of course. Cal ID, which is the calibration file identification. So think of a calibration file as like the software version running on the computer. And then CVN is going to be the calibration verification number. So that's the whatever file was put on the computer to verify that it installed correctly and everything's working. This information is often used to determine if a reflash is needed. I'll tell you, at least in my experience at Subaru, we would use that. And actually, I'll show you a bulletin in a little bit when we go live on the tool that it was dictated whether or not you needed to reflash the computer, depending on what the calibration ID was. They've since changed it to part numbers, but back in the day, that was necessary. So I'd imagine other manufacturers probably do it too. So I went into mode 9, right? And then we have the VIN, we have the cal ID, calibration verification number, ECU's acronym and text name. So is it the engine computer, is it the transmission, engine serial number, exhaust regulation and type approval number, worldwide harmonized OBD support information, fueled engine operation, ignition cycle counter, and distance travel since EVAP monitor. So not every vehicle, once again, supports all of these different items, but on this vehicle we have it. So if we wanted to find the cal ID, for example, you can find the calibration ID. Now in this case, once again, this is on my car. So E8 is the engine and E9 is the transmission computer. So you can see the different calibration IDs because, of course, they're two different computers, so they'd have two different softwares on them. But that would be what I would use in order to find out, okay, does this have the most current software on it? Does the software need to be up to date? Let's see, calibration verification number. Sometimes you need those as well. So we have that in there. And then, we would go on from there. There's also mode 9 in-use performance tracking available. Once again, doesn't always show up. Displays the results of monitor tests, such as ignition cycles, catalyst monitor, oxygen sensor tests, and EVAP monitors. So in the case of this, we have in-use performance tracking here. And we can see how many times we've reached OBD monitoring conditions, how many engine starts, catalyst monitor completions, oxygen sensor completions, etc. So you can see how many times has this run and how many times has it completed. So you can see the different numbers there if you needed to know. And then mode 10 is required of all emissions related DTCs at this point. If you saw the pre-roll video at the beginning, it's pretty much from 12 on. These DTCs cannot be cleared by a scan tool. No matter how hard you try, no matter how many times you try, you will not be able to clear these codes because it's mandatory that they stay in there. For the DTC to clear, the component must pass the onboard monitor first. So this is helpful when you get that vehicle that somebody else worked on already. Maybe it was at the parts store or something like that, and they did the free scan and they cleared it. So now the code's clear, or maybe the customer went and disconnected the battery or something like that. And so, oh no, what do I do now? Well, these codes stay there, once again, like I said, until it passes the monitor. If it doesn't pass the monitor, then it pops back up as a mode 3 code. But it's going to stay there until it fixes itself. And if it's not fixed, then I can see, okay, well, here's the 3 codes that were in there before. So for example, we have displayed permanent codes there. And then of course, in this case, we had no codes present, but there is, of course, they will flip over once you clear it. Once you clear the codes, it'll go over to permanent. So you do have to clear it for it to flip over there. So you might not necessarily find that too. But that does answer the question of when I clear my codes, why are there still codes? There's a couple different reasons it could be depending on where you're at in the tool and what kind of car you're working on. But for OBD-II for sure, that's why there's permanent codes. All right, let's go live on the tool. Got a couple things we'll talk about. First one I want to do is I want to pop in here in shop key and pull up trusty old 04 out. I remember doing this with the 4-cylinder. Let's put leather in it and make it a wagon like this. Automatic. Okay. So in here, you'll see, well, the number 1 code on these vehicles is a P0420. Go into P0420. You may or may not find bulletins. In this case, we do not find a bulletin because it was actually an OEM campaign that I'm looking for. So we got safety recalls, airbags. There we go. Engine control module reprogramming. So this is a Subaru has determined that vehicles affected by the service program require ECM reprogramming under certain unique driving patterns, such as slight on-off throttle applications, repeated in a short period of time after a high load, like going uphill. Temperature in the vehicle's catalytic converter can rise beyond its design limits. If left uncorrected, the condition may eventually damage the catalytic converters. Note, does not require the replacement of catalytic converters unless the DTC is found during the programming process outlined in the bulletin. If catalytic converter damage has occurred as a result of this condition, the check engine light will be on, and you'll see a PO 420. Very, very common to have a PO 420, as we saw, was the #1 code. Because they were burning cats out of these things. And what really happens is that's a really long paragraph to say we leaned out the fuel mixture too much when we programmed these at the factory to get better gas mileage. And now we got to richen the mixture back up. Otherwise, we're burning cats right out of this. And I know my dealership in particular, we always got audited by Subaru because we replaced a lot of cats. And it was just because of their terrible cats. They gave us tests to do and everything. So it's not like it was not like we were trying to do anything shady or anything. Just they needed it. It's under emissions. All right, so in this case, it's going to walk through some screenshots of the factory tool, right? But in this case, it's going to go into engine control system, look for codes as well. And then it's also going to say, you got to check for the calibration IDs. Control system, OBD, get vehicle information. And then the calibration ID will be displayed. Make sure you check the first 8 digits. It'll need it in step 7. So go to step 7, and that's where you would actually find the flash to reflash the computer. Was due to that calibration ID. You plug the calibration ID in, and it would come back with, here's the appropriate file to program. So that was helpful. And then it just tells you what your, so you'd plug in the calibration ID, and it would spit out whatever file. Not every manufacturer does it that way. I'm sure other manufacturers do it this way. It's just a matter of you would need the calibration ID. And then after this, they actually went by part numbers now. So it's moot on Subaru anyways, but I'm sure other manufacturers did it. All right, so let's go in and look at a couple more things. We're going to go into, I did see Quinn asked on YouTube a little bit earlier when I was on the screen, how do I get to that mode 10? So you just go from your home screen, whatever it is on your tool, and you go to OBD Direct, and then you go to OBD Diagnose. Yes, I'm scanning a real vehicle. We start communication. It's going to auto detect the vehicle. There we go. Found one. This is on my Chrysler demo board. We continue, and then this is where, Quinn, you would find it once you get into the vehicle and you see your readiness monitors and all that. Then if it's supported by the car, it'll be here. If it's not supported by the vehicle, it just won't show up. For example, mode 5, not supported on this particular vehicle, I think because it's too new. So mode 6, mode 7, display test parameters. Mode 6, it's going to pull any supported tests out of the vehicle. And this is kind of like a half ECU, so it's not, doesn't support everything, but we can see oxygen sensor, bank 1, sensor 1 and 2, catalyst monitor, bank 1, EGR monitor, EVAP monitor for cap off. So there's different levels, right? There's different thresholds for EVAP codes. So in this case, that's the one, the EVAP monitor to test for if the cap's off. This is one for 90 thousandths, which would be, I guess, a gross leak. This is for 20 thousandths for a very small leak. Purge flow monitor, oxygen sensor heaters, misfires on each cylinder, as we had on the Subaru there. So these are the supported tests on this particular Chrysler minivan. If I go in here, I don't remember exactly what it's going to tell me because it's not a real car, but yeah, so same thing, average misfires last 10 drive cycles, and then misfires the current drive cycle by cylinder. This is whether it's on, it's enabled or completed as well. Okay, so that's mode 6, and that's where a lot of your data is going to be, right? A lot of those test data that you could use for that. I know a lot of Ford folks would use the mode 6 data for diagnosing misfires on Fords because we know that's pretty rare. that afford misfires? Not really, but they would always go into mode 6 and check it out just to see what was detected before. DTC is detected during the last drive cycle. Once again, this is your, what's the word I want? Pending codes. There we go. These are your pending codes. Of course, nothing in there because we don't have any codes in this vehicle. So mode 8. And then request of onboard control system, not supported by this controller, which, like I said, it's a simulator. Read vehicle information, in-use performance tracking, and additional vehicle information are 3 mode 9s in here. So let's see, services may not provide valid data if the engine's running. Then we got the VIN, CAL ID, CAL verification number, ECU acronym and text name, engine serial number, exhaust regulation type approval, ignition counter, EVAP monitor, OBD. So we pull the VIN. I think that's the only one that supports on here. So there's the VIN. If you want to pull the calibration, same deal. And in this case, it's not supported. So if it's not supported by the vehicle, once again, you would see that on the screen. It's not the tool's fault, it's the car. In-use performance tracking. That's going to tell you how many times it's run and whether or not it's complete, right? So we have all these listings right here. So OBD, ignition cycle, catalyst, oxygen sensor, EGR and VVT, secondary air, EVAP, secondary oxygen sensors. And then additional vehicle information. It's going to give us some additional information, such as in-use performance tracking again, which gets lumped in there for some reason. And then we have common supported vehicle. So you have the VIN, CAL ID, and the CAL verification number all in one screen. So if you needed that for a reflash or something like that, you can take a screenshot, something like that, and then we'll let you go. And then lastly, of course, like we said, we have the permanent trouble code. So in this case, we have no codes present, and the simulator doesn't bounce them to permanent, but there is another way of getting it. So if we go into our scanner and we pull up our Chrysler 10 auto ID. Matt, I will let you know in 1 minute, or when we're done with this part, I will let you know on the part number on that because it's on the floor right now. All right. So there's my vehicle, right? 2010 Town and Country, like I said. I'm going to do fitted systems. Okay, and then I'll just do a quick code scan on it. So this kind of goes with what you're saying as well, Quinn, there. How else to find mode 10? Just got to let it roll through here. Hidden cheat code menu, yeah. Gotta love it. That mode 10 it's like kind of a hidden gem, hidden secret, right? Like you said, hidden cheat code menu. If you know the cheat code, you can get in. And of course, the car has to support it too. We're just gonna scan through this little Chrysler here for a minute. Takes a little while because it's pretend. A friend of ours has almost the same exact vehicle, and it takes less time to scan it in real life. Almost there. The important part's at the end anyways. Let's see. All right. So it's done. It's saved. We see no codes in the engine. We come down here, go through all the modules. We're going to have a lot of codes. And then you see we have OBD-II codes right here in mode 3. And then OBD permanent codes will also show up on this list if there are any permanent codes in the computer. So if you wanted to just do a full vehicle scan, full code scan, it will pull the permanent codes if applicable to that vehicle, if it has them and if it supports that. It will show up down here at the bottom of a code scan as well. So good to know. You go back up to the top here. I want to pop over an engine as well. Just a quick reminder, if you want to, and you're on the scanner side, and you want to flip over to the generic side real quick, we can go into generic functions. And you see you won't get them all, but you'll get a good amount of them. So we get freeze frame, display trouble codes, emissions related data, mode 6. We don't get mode 7, 8, 9, and no mode 10 in this case either. So, but you can still see the readiness monitors pop in there like that. And then I will also say, like I said earlier, that mode 6 gets used a lot. Ford folks will use it a lot to diagnose misfires. Actually, probably at least 5 years ago, if not longer, we actually took the mode 6 data out, or it's still there, right? But we brought it over onto the scanner side too. So if you look at misfire data on a modern Ford, it's going to have both the OEM data and it has the generic misfire data on there. Let me see if I can actually show that to you. Let's see if I can just pop a Ford in here real quick. Let's see, 18 pick them up truck. That one. Engine and data. And we'll go into engine management data. Actually, we can do let's do misfire data. That's what I'm talking. Misfire data. All right, and we'll see our regular counts here. And then average over the last 10 drive cycles, that'll be out of mode 6 as well. So we got the count here is out of mode 6, and that's out of mode 6. And then the rest of it's going to be your information from the OEM side. So you actually just combined it all into one big data table, which makes it a little bit easier. So you don't have to keep going back and forth. We know a lot of people use that. So let's see what else. I think that's about it. So we'll get out of there. All right. So that is it for OBD-II, the power of OBD-II information part 2. Hopefully you picked up a few more tips and tricks on the OBD-II side. I know a couple of you, at least watching along on YouTube, did for sure. So yeah, that'll do it for this. Let's talk about what we're doing next week. Actually, 2 weeks. I misspoke. So 2 weeks. As next week in the US, it is a holiday. So on Tuesday, so we won't be doing anything class related. So in 2 weeks, we're going to start back on our code basics. So if you've been following along these last 5 classes, and this is how we do it all the time, is we'll do 5 classes. Then we repeat those 5 classes. It gives you plenty of chances and opportunities to watch the class live, ask questions, etc. So 2 weeks. So that'll be what, the 11th, I believe, the 11th. So code basics, same deal, 6 and 9 Eastern, as we do just about every Tuesday. Snapon.com/OT if you want to watch on Zoom. Otherwise, the 6 p.m. class goes to YouTube, like we're doing right now. And then the 9 p.m. Eastern class goes to my Facebook page, which is facebook.com/SnaponJason. YouTube.com/Snapon Diagnostics is the YouTube channel. Make sure you like and subscribe there if you want to follow us. And then also, if you want to see any of the past prior classes in this series, anywhere from ADOS to the power of OBD-II information, which is this class right now is class 67. So that's a lot. That's a lot of information available for you. So, you know, have at it if you want some more. Once again, youtube.com/Snapon Diagnostics. Check that out. There's a playlist for live training. It's going to have all this stuff on. Let's go to Q&A/comments. So if you did join late on Zoom and you do have a question, just look at the top of the bottom of your screen, wherever the Q&A button is, wherever your Zoom controls are, you should be able to pop in there and type your question if you need to. Otherwise, we'll talk in a minute. Also, note that my buddy Keith also does free training on Wednesdays and Thursdays. So it's at one class a night, and it's Zoom only, but it's snapon.com/OT and 7:30 Eastern. So Wednesday is on Zeus and Zeus Plus, and then Thursday is on Apollo and Triton, either of the flavors of those. So he's going to go through setup functions, scanner functions, fast track intelligent diagnostics. And then after he'll take a little break, a little 5-minute break. Then after that, he'll go through all the scope and meter functions, guided component testing on their respective tools as well. So very thorough, about an hour and a half, 45 minutes or so. So definitely check that out if you want to learn a little bit more about those tools, or you got a buddy who wants to learn more about their tools. All right, let's go to questions. Looks like Zoom, we are clear. We will go to YouTube. Dan Cujo, welcome. Thanks for joining. Quinn, thanks for joining as always. Nick from the UK, thanks for joining. I know it's late at night, and we taught Quinn something today because he never really messed around with the OBD-II menu, so now he's probably going to be messing around with it. Good for when going over a used car that someone's cleared codes out, for sure. I don't think that's necessarily why they did it, but they did it, and it's helpful. And then Matt says, where do we find the demo board? So you can go on shop.snapon.com, and it's, stop sharing my screen here for a second. This guy right here. I thought way out of focus. Looks like a little Chrysler. Keys here. You can set codes in the engine, set codes in the body. You can also set a couple different PIDs. You can change the values of the PIDs there. And then you just plug in your scan tool. So I got the wireless module for my Zeus plugged in there. And I just have it sitting over there on the floor. The part number, if you want it, is EE. So Edward, SX, Sam Xylophone. So EESX, 306 Sam Charles, SC. So SC for scanner. So just so you know, that is the number. And you can, you should be able to order right off the website or from your franchisee. Should be able to order it from them. It's helpful. It's got an ECM, it's got a BCM. Doesn't really have much else in there as far as computers, but you can go through, you can practice. And it's got OBD-II, so you can just go pop in there. Oh, also, I was going to mention too. Yeah, so also in here, in the scan tools themselves, if you go into OBD Direct, there's also a training mode where you don't have to hook up to a car at all. You just hit OBD training mode and then hit start communication. It's just going to pretend it's hooked up to a car. And in this case, we just have our demo right there. You continue. And then, like I said, doesn't give you everything. It gives you mode 5, doesn't give you mode 10, gives you a couple mode 9s, but not all of them. So it's just going to depend on, what you want to look at in there. But there is an OBD training mode you can go in. You can still look in the troubleshooter too. Check your code tips, parameters, etc. That's all in there. Just so you know on that. All right. Now let's get back to questions. All right, let's see. Quinn, Matt said that. All right. Yeah, Donald said hidden cheat code menu. You saw that. Quinn can't wait to use his newly acquired power. Wonderful. And also Donald is voting for more diesel and medium duty content. Yes, I will work on that. I will add that to my list. Let's see. Anthony says, anyone on board received a great presentation tonight. He's got the puns. Eric says, can this work with any scanner? So any of the things I'm showing you in these classes for the OBD-II will work on any Snap-on scanner. As far as like any other scanners on the market, like other brands, probably. The ones I've messed around with, I mean, they have most of the information. I think some of them don't support mode 10. I think probably all of them do now at this point. But for a while there, not every scan tool supported mode 10, and we did. But I'm pretty sure everybody's gotten on board with that by now. Yeah, so any Snap-on scan tool, it'll be the same menus in there. And then also Quinn says, don't forget to like the video, get that algorithm going. Thank you for that. Like, share, subscribe, all those good things. Looks like we got something on Zoom. Let's see. Gerardo says BMW available too. So you mean the BMW demo board, I'm assuming. So that should be as well. It's EESX 306, just like on the minivan. And it's SP instead of SC. So SC is the scanner. SP is for the scope. I guess that's why they put the P there. Yeah, the BMW should be available too through your franchisee. I don't know if we have them in the catalog, but I know we get them online for sure. Available there. All right. So with that, looks like we have cleared the big board there. And I would like to take a little bit of time to thank you for taking a little bit of time out of your day, spend a little bit of time with me. Hopefully we learned a little bit more about OBD2. I know some of you did, for sure. So use it to your advantage. Use it when you're out there. Check both sides of that computer. Check the OEM side, check the OBD2 side. Make sure you're getting as much information as you possibly can. And then we'll see you in 2 weeks for code basics. We can get back to basics and learn a little bit more about how codes came to be and what they do, and kind of how they're laid out, which can help as well. So with that, have a nice week. Enjoy your weekend. We'll see you in 2 weeks. If you're in the United States, enjoy your holiday, and we will see you next time. Have a good night and take care.